Are you looking to escape the 9 to 5 but don't have a good place to start? That's okay. My next guest is a non-food franchising consultant who helps people get out of the rat race and get into a proven business model that can generate some serious revenue. So in this episode, my next guest breaks down 3 different non-food franchise business models, one of which can generate approximately about 1.7 million a year in revenue with about 600,000 in profit. So if you're looking to become an entrepreneur, control your own schedule, and make some serious cash, this episode's for you. Please welcome Bob Bernotas. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sean. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So why don't you kick us off and tell us about your background?
Oh, my goodness. College athlete, unfulfilled college career, got injured. And so I wanted to make my mark some other way. Corporate America lasted all of 4 years in corporate America before they threw me out. And then it's been entrepreneurialism ever since. My first franchise I broke into in December of 1986 back in the video industry. Of course, you know what happened to that industry. Fortunately, I got out at a decent time, so I didn't take too much of a beating. But my first unit that I opened with a brand called West Coast Video, they preceded Blockbuster Video. Just purely fortunate to get the right location, and that unit rocketed and was the top unit in the chain that January of 1987, allowing me to move on and develop multiple units of that concept. But yeah, my whole background has been in franchise. I've owned several franchise concepts and multiple units with each of those. I was CEO of a national chain, which was in the tanning industry, and been still a franchisee at this point. I've been consulting for a couple of decades. Over the course of the last half dozen years or so, I morphed entirely into the franchisee side. So I work with clients, candidates to help them find the right franchise concept. That's primarily what I do now.
Gotcha. Thanks for the context on your background. Let's just dive in a little bit here. College sports. What did you play?
Mm-hmm. I was a runner. 400, 800. I was recruited. I earned a D1 scholarship to Seton Hall University, and got injured my sophomore year and tried to hang in there, and I just couldn't get past the injury. Kept trying to come back too early, and eventually I gave it up. And then transferred my last year of college to Westchester University and finished up there.
Okay. All right. And then you said you gave a shot at corporate America, 4 years.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
Oh, my goodness. I did a little of everything, and either I got canned because I couldn't keep my mouth shut, or it just wasn't for me, and I walked away from it. I always just felt like I could do it better than others. I had this ego, which, you get older and you start realizing you got to swallow that ego a bit. And I walked away from everything that I did in corporate America, or I got canned from it, and ended up in franchising eventually. I first launched a small computer software, hardware company, knew nothing about computers or software at that point, back when Compaq had a suitcase size portable with a screen about 5 inches in diameter. But in any event, got involved, like I said, in franchising in December of 1987, and that's what I've been doing since.
Awesome. So the entrepreneurial journey was inevitable for you.
Yeah, it was. No doubt. It's that or surrender.
Sure. So just to kind of summarize, you had the computer-like business. I was thinking of these IT solution help desk franchises that you see all over. I shouldn't say all over, but I remember you see one or two in a city. You did you were CEO of a tanning franchise. Which one was that?
It was called Tan World. So I bought a West Coast Video. I'm sorry, Hollywood Tans franchise. Actually, developed multiples of those. Had 5 in the Maryland area, and then my partner and we saw an opportunity to acquire controlling interest of a company called Tan World, a larger chain than what our holdings were. And so I had to sell my Hollywood Tans franchises. So obviously can't compete. Yep. Sold those, and then we bought controlling interest of Tan World. I was the lucky one that was tasked with moving to It would have been Sioux City, Iowa, next to a pig processing plant to be CEO and running the company. Wasn't about to have that. So I moved the corporate headquarters to Omaha, Nebraska, and started building that company, and ended up selling the company to a larger organization called Suntan City a handful of years later.
In 4 years. Nice.
Yep.
How many franchise locations did Tan World have?
About 100 at that time when we sold.
Okay. Can you share with us the acquisition?
No, unfortunately, I can't. I'm actually under a non-disclosure on that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry.
But no worries. I am that Suntan City you said?
Yep.
I am familiar with that. I've seen that brand before, but yeah, 100 locations, build that up over 4 years. That's awesome. Nice work there.
Thank you.
And now let's get into the consulting side. You help people, and I've got a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are working a full-time job. They're thinking about ways to get out of the rat race, find ways to create passive income. And for the show, you were talking about semi-passive opportunities.
Right.
Let's dive into, I love interviewing franchise consultants like yourself because we can kind of dive into a few different examples. So maybe start with an example for us.
Sure. Well, how about if I start with the example of one that I just bought myself?
Please.
So I had a client that I was working with who was local to me. And occasionally, like I mentioned, I invest in franchises as well. But this client was local to me. I started working with him and realized pretty quickly he did not have the capital to do it properly. He was right on the verge of maybe being able to afford a single unit. So I raised my hand. I trusted him as a potential operator on a semi-passive basis, and because he has a full-time job. And it was local. I liked the market that it was in, and I loved the concept. So I ended up not only acquiring the franchise, but ended up buying 6 units. I brought a couple other people in, so we formed a small investment group and acquired 6 units of this brand. The brand is a men's health concept. It does TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, ED treatment, weight loss, and it does peptides for faster healing. All really hot concepts right now, and the unit economics on the concept is phenomenal. So I just felt I couldn't pass on it and jumped in.
Can we break down some of the numbers here? I know you can't always give away the name of the franchise because we want our listeners to go through you, but entry price, like what kind of bank loan do you need to take out to start a business like this?
So that one is it's actually really reasonable because it's brick and mortar, but it's not brick and mortar retail. It's going into office space, specifically into medical parks. You're looking at about 1,500 square feet is really all you need for this concept, for maybe 5 treatment rooms. So you're looking at an overall cost that in their FDD, their item 7 of their FDD, it's showing an overall cost of, I think it's $224 to $389. So right in that $300K range to launch a unit.
And down payments, what do they recommend? About 20%?
Yeah, typically, it depends upon the type of financing you're going to do. But I've seen SBA go as low as 10%, but in most cases, you're talking about a 20% down on that.
Got it. Are you able, it's kind of like the entry cost, are you able to give us a range on what revenues may be per month or per year?
I can give you what their item 19 of their franchise disclosure document offers. And they're showing unit revenue of 1.7. And they're showing a net of in excess of 600K.
Hey, so there we go.
That's a unicorn. There's not a lot of concepts I can show you like that. But if a client said to me, Bob, show me the best financial opportunities in franchising, that certainly would be one that I would show them.
Absolutely. Those numbers are fantastic. Yeah. What kind of head count as far as staff are we talking about? 5
people. It requires a part-time. It's a typical doc in a box model. It requires a doctor on a part-time basis, typically 6, 8, 10 hours a month reviewing files, and you're really operating on his license. And so the doctor, an NP or PA, nurse practitioner, or physician's assistant type, a couple of levels down, medical assistants, and a receptionist, and you're up and running. So what we did is buying 6 units. So our plan is to open the first 2 units at the same time, so we can share and have them within relative proximity of each other, so we can share staff between them, and let number 1 and 2, the first 2 units, open within a year, enough profit to potentially open number 3, maybe to a year and a half. But then number 1 and 2 will really be cranking at that point, because it's a membership-based model, reoccurring revenue. And men, if they get on testosterone, they're never coming off. So it's considered to be a very sticky. Yeah. Right. And plus, then they have the other profit centers, which are more expensive, and those are bought as packages. But once you have the client, then you can upsell them on the other services.
Can you give us a reasonable timeline to start generating revenue with a business? For example, let's say somebody comes to you today and says, "Hey, Bob, I just heard this opportunity you talked about on Payback Time. I'm interested." You hit the go button. You probably go through the interview process and due diligence, but to then have that person pass all the tests and get through all the hoops to start making money, what kind of timeline are we looking at? Is this like 3 months?
Yeah, when we start the process with a client, I'm typically working with a client anywhere from 8 to maybe 15 weeks, depending upon the client. Some cases it takes longer, some cases it takes less. Once we complete that process and they land on the right franchise and they acquire the franchise, well, in the case of that particular concept, it's not brick and mortar retail, so it's not going to take 9, 12 months to open it. Probably 5-6 months is a reasonable time frame from the time they purchase.
Got it. Love this example. All right, so that's example 1. Let's talk about another.
Sure. Let's see. I've placed a lot of my clients over the course of the last 2 years into a concept. It is a B2C mainly service concept that falls in the home service category. It's a gutter company. They install gutters. And I know that sounds perhaps below some people, but when you see the unit economics on this concept, it's stellar. Everybody that I placed in that concept is doing exceptionally well. Unfortunately, a lot of the country's already sold out with it because of the unit economics. But that company, and again, I'll share some numbers with you. The top line numbers in their franchise disclosure document, or item 19, are showing a 1.7 top line and a 25 to 30% net.
Nice. That's great.
On an investment that is typically sub 300K. Now, the beauty of those types of concepts, when you're talking about service, and you can have one location, maybe you have 1,000 square foot warehouse somewhere, a little bit of parking, but you can centrally locate that warehouse and buy multiple franchises. When you buy multiple franchises in that type of scenario, you're just buying more dirt. So you don't carry that same cost opening the number 2 and number 3. You just scale into it over time by maybe adding another truck and eventually another truck or a trailer and some more personnel. So you don't absorb the same amount of cost. If you got into something like a Crumble Cookie, which I think everybody knows, or a Orange Theory, you're looking at $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 to open. Yeah. One. If you open multiples of a concept like that, now you're talking about some real money in the millions, and they're not going to perform any better. So to me, those types of concepts don't make a lot of sense. Yeah. When I'm working with a client, I always seem to gravitate towards people that allow me to do the following: focus on ROI, earnings. I don't give a damn what the widget is, as long as it's something that's ethical, provides a valued service to the community. And 9 out of 10 times it's semi-passive, because most of my clients, that's what they're looking for. Because if you don't cross the first barrier and have financial success in your business, I don't care how passionate you are about something. I can't tell you how often people tell me, well, I love my dog. I want to be in something pet related. And I'll gently ask them the question, well, do you want to make money? If that's not important to you, yeah, I can show you lots of pet concepts. But if making money is important to you, let's maybe go in another direction.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thanks for breaking down the numbers here in the gutter service. I was actually a customer of a company had gutter type like a gutter guard type product
Sure.
installed, so the leaves and all the junk doesn't get. I every year I'd have to pay somebody to get up on my house, and I'm
Right.
horrible with heights, so and the
Me
way
too.
my house is laid out, the front of the house is almost it's not 2-story, it's 3-story because it's above the garage, and it's like, nope, I'm not taking that fall. Let's hire a
Yeah.
professional.
Don't blame you. I'm the same way with heights.
Yeah. So get it. That's a great business model there. So far I like this health and wellness field business because it's got the reoccurring subscription membership, sticky, highly sticky.
Hmm.
So far that seems to be the winner. I don't want to disregard the gutter
Hmm.
service, which is still a good business model, but
Absolutely.
let's dive into a third example.
Oh my goodness. Well, and I'm going to stick with the service category, and I place a lot of people in that category for the reasons I've already laid out.
Yeah.
But there's another one that, again, it wouldn't be the sexiest brand in the world, but they do insulation. Okay, which is actually considered a green concept right now because there's energy savings and there's tax credits available, and that's how actually they pitch it. But the unit economics, some if they don't. I stopped short of offering unit economics on this one, other than to say they're stellar. But most of their franchisees in the concept are 1-2 years old. Most of them are 1 year old. So it's not going to, and the unit economics, the top line is over $1 million, and you're looking at about a 30% net. But those numbers will continue to grow over time. And again, it's a sub 300K concept. You get into it with everything you need, with a little growth or expansion room by owning multiple territories.
That's awesome. And I assume same thing, you were probably about 20% down.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those numbers are pretty advantageous. What I'm doing here is I'm taking a step back and looking at, there's people out there who are like, all right, I want to become a real estate investor. So I want to, let's say, take out a loan on a $250,000 to $300,000 home. They're doing the math there. Maybe they're going to collect rent that's between, let's say, $1,500 and $2,000 at most, but then you're paying your property management company, you're paying your mortgage, you're paying insurance, your net on that, you're talking a few $100 for an entry that's the same. Yep. Your other option is go to you, open a franchise, and you can start generating some real money.
Oh my goodness. You just nailed what I say to so many of my clients who are real estate investors, because look, vast majority of my clients are in the market. A good percentage of them, probably 40-50%, are real estate investors. And I have this conversation with them all the time. If you got in before COVID, just before COVID, fantastic, happy for you. You had a run up on equity. Real estate is a long-term play.
Yeah.
You better be in it 15, 20 years, and it can be phenomenal if you are. But trying to manage multiple properties on your own, that's a job. Okay. Yeah. If you hire a management company, then you give up all your profit, or you're running in a red, and you're just riding the equity. What I love about semi-passive franchises is, look, if you're going to manage real estate, it's going to take you some time. Okay. Put that time into a franchise, invest in a franchise, put that same time into a franchise, and you want to see equity grow. Okay. Number one, you have cash flow, and very positive cash flow, depending upon the franchise, how quickly that's going to occur. Mm-hmm. But then you're also building equity in something. And typically what I have seen over the years is that a franchise, you're going to, when sold, you typically see somewhere between a 2.5 to 5 multiple of earnings, depending upon the model. If it's a more reoccurring model, you're going to see closer to that 4 or 5, and I've seen even 6 and 7 multiple of earnings. So if you open a business and keep the numbers relatively reasonable and say, hey, you top line $1 million with it, and you bottom line 250 with it. And let's say you invested 300K to launch that business. And let's say by second, third year, you're generating 250 to the bottom line. What's that business worth? I mean, it should be worth, somewhere between 700,000 to like $1.25 million for that business that you may have invested $300,000 in. So I don't know where in real estate you're ever going to see that type of return.
Yeah.
And plus make money along the way.
Yeah. This podcast episode is sponsored by Ticker. Ticker is a platform that helps you manage your own investments with confidence. Check this out. Let's search for Apple. You can see Apple is on sale. That's looking good. Score is 61 out of 100, and margin of safety is 75%. Higher the score, the safer the investment, and the higher the margin of safety, the higher potential returns you can make. In this case, you can see the share price is 175 as of the recording of this video, and the upside potential, the fair value, is 398. All right, let's look at a different stock. We'll go to GameStop. In this case, GameStop is overpriced. Scores 39 out of 100. That's not looking too good. And the margin of safety is 0%. Here are some other features within. You can create your own custom dashboard. I like to set up and take a look at the top gainers and losers in the last 24 hours. I also like to take a look at the top search stocks, but you can really customize the dashboard to whatever you want. We have stocks, ETFs, crypto. This is a big one. We have a watch list tool that allows you to add stocks to the watch list. And if anything changes, such as that score or margin of safety, you automatically get notified. I call it the set it and forget it feature. And then we have portfolio trackers and alerts. So if you're looking for strong stocks, want to avoid bad stocks, and learn how to invest, I invite you to join Ticker for free. And what I like in your model, you as a consultant, you're helping them align with opportunities because you know this space. And then the company, I think about the corporate, you can rely on them for best practices, maybe hiring people, what to avoid those landmines. It's really a solid model with real estate. And I've talked to the people that are in this space, and I still like real estate investing, but I find with each and every person, this is the same thing. You got to find somebody who can coach you and guide you along the way. Avoid those landmines.
And those landmines often happen. I mean, and that's the same thing with franchising. It's unfortunate. I've seen a lot of franchise disasters. People getting into, I'll give you an example. I mean, a guy I'm working with right now, he bought a franchise, a food franchise. He invested about $600,000 in a brand whose initials are JJ, and they talk about doing things very fast. But he invested that money. He spent 5 years trying to make it work. At best, he was making a small, like a couple percent, dropping to the bottom line. And he moved from Chicago to Richmond, Virginia, because everything was sold out in his market, and that's where there was some availability. And it ended up being a disaster. He recently sold that business for $145,000 that he invested about $600K in.
Oh boy!
Of which 45 was cash, the rest was paper he's holding.
Wow.
So that's why I don't like food.
Yeah.
Plus the time that he invested in it too. I don't think full-time franchises, especially linear models where it's a consulting type franchise, you're trading time for money. What I'm doing right now, I'm trading time for money. So, I mean, that's why I invest in franchises to make money. This is more my passion to help others position that way. But if you don't, too often I've seen people get into franchises, the wrong franchise, and it doesn't work out. I will tell you that probably 2/3 of the franchises out there, I won't deal with. The other third, there's some really good ones, and there's some exceptional ones in that mix as well. But I only deal with franchise companies if there's something larger behind it. If it's a mom and pop type franchise, or it's an entity standing on its own, that scares me. I'd rather deal with entities that are owned by something larger, that has a management team that are experts in franchising, that have built other franchises. I would argue all day that the franchising piece of it is so much more important than whatever the widget is. A lot of people can come up with a concept, a restaurant, pick a business and make a business work, but can you duplicate it and make it work for the lowest common denominator? So that's why the franchise expertise is so important to me.
Now, with a lot of people that come to you, I assume they're working full-time, stable jobs, probably pretty gainful employment, corporate America, six-figure incomes. They probably don't want to go all in, which is why the language you really phrased before we hit record really, it rings a bell with me, is semi-passive. So you probably are coaching people to say, hey, you don't have to dive into this thing full-time right away. I can help you get up and started so you can keep your day job, see the revenues increase, and then consider jumping in. Is that kind of the same language you use?
That's exactly the language I use. So
Okay.
when I'm working with, and most of my clients will fall into that bucket, and there's really different variations of that. Some people are ready to jump out of corporate America and they want to make that move as soon as they find the right concept. If not, they've already been laid off or something. But more often, I'm working with people who are in corporate America. They make good money. They have that lifeline, that safety net they feel. I don't know how safe that really is, because you get fired, you can get laid off. But they are looking for something because they might be working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. They know they can't maintain that pace forever. So they're looking for an off ramp, be it a gradual off ramp from corporate America, or some people go into it just looking for something as a side hustle. They want to stay in corporate America long term. They might be in their 30s, someone younger. But I always tell them eventually you're going to step away. When you see what you can do with a franchise, you're not going to stay in corporate America and have to deal with the politics and all the investment time and so forth. Because every franchise will become, even if it's a full-time franchise and not a semi-passive, eventually it becomes semi-passive. Once you have the right people in place, you're leveraging other people.
Yeah.
But the companies that are day one semi-passive concepts are the ones that have developed the platform to support that. They developed the tools. Franchise companies, especially over the last 10 years, have really smartened up. And more of them are developing that platform. They simply want to cast a wider net. They're not just looking for people that are leaving their jobs or a franchise investor and buying their concept. They're looking for people who are in corporate America, because many, many more people fall into that bucket. So they want to bring those people into it, but start it on a part-time basis.
Awesome. And before we jump into the rapid fire round, what is a great first step for people if they want to get started with a franchise?
Find a mentor, find somebody who really understands franchising, and preferably somebody who has worn both the hat of a franchisee and been part of a franchisor, because I think it's really important to see it from both perspectives and understand, what's behind the infrastructure of a franchise to know the type of support that you're going to get. But having someone who has succeeded in franchising, has been part of a corporate structure as well, and then is willing to give you the time to mentor you.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's jump into the rapid fire round. This is the part of the episode where we get to find out who Bob really is.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. If you can, try to answer each question in 15 seconds or less. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. What is your favorite podcast?
Other than Payback Time, I'd say Rogan.
Okay. Joe Rogan Experience. Nice. All right. What is a recent book you read and would recommend?
One I mentioned earlier, actually the E-Myth Revisited. I loved the E-Myth. I read E-Myth Revisited, and I certainly would recommend that book.
Yes, indeed. All right, here's a fun one. What is your favorite movie?
That's a tough one. I got lots of favorite movies. I'd say Braveheart has to be right up there. The Big Short, I dug. You have to watch that like 3 or 4 times to really get all the nuance of that movie. And I'd say those are my top 2.
Good choices. All right, a few business questions here. What is the worst advice you ever received?
You know what? I'd say sleep on it. In that sometimes you're told, like, hey, just take your time, and then an opportunity passes you by. And I'd say there's more of those that have happened than opportunities that I have grasped. Sleep on it.
Okay. Flip that equation. What is the best advice you ever received?
You know what? I'm going to go with the same thing. I'm going to say sleep on it, because there's been times that I may have jumped a little bit too quickly into something and then, maybe regretted it later. I'll say sleep on it as well.
Okay. Goes both ways. All right. So we get the time machine question here. If you could go back in time to give your younger self advice, what age would you visit and what would you say?
Oh, my goodness. I would say I would go back to my college days and say, take my academics a little bit more seriously, because I didn't when I was in college. It was more the girls and athletics. But any other thing I would say is I something I always regret: walking away. I had enough injury plagued in track, and I was on a scholarship, and eventually I walked away from it my last year, my senior year, just because I too much pressure on a D1 scholarship, and I always regretted walking away.
Gotcha. All right. And if the audience is interested in getting started with franchising, they'll probably want to reach out to you. Where's the best place they can contact you?
Sure, they can reach out to me on my website at franchisewithbob.com. Pretty simple. I have a free ebook that they can download from my website. I'll be happy to have a conversation, spend 30 minutes with anybody. We'll try to figure out if it makes sense for us to work together. And if you didn't mention this before, we didn't talk about it before, I'm paid by franchise companies for bringing qualified people to them. So it's free to the clients that I work with.
Right on. All right, Bob. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, I enjoyed it, Sean. Thank you very much.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.
Bye-bye.